Hello, everyone. This is the Great Simulator, and we are back with another Sprinter Van Expediting episode. And in today's episode, we are going to go over ways to become a more successful expediter. Now, some of these tips are tips that I wish I would have followed when I was with XPO and when I was with Boat. But unfortunately, I didn't. Maybe, if I did follow all of these steps, or like number 10 says, give it your all may depend on it. And maybe I would still be out there today. I don't know. I would like to think that I would have been. But you have to remember to give it your all. Because your all may depend on it. There is so much that goes into getting into the expediting field. There is a lot you have to sacrifice to get into the expediting field, which goes with number one. You are sacrificing your home life. Those that are single, those that doesn't necessarily have an immediate family, they could tend to go out for 3-4 weeks at a time, and it's perfectly fine with them. I've known expediters, I've met expediters that, this was their home. They didn't have a home to go back to. This was it for them. I've met some expediters that were homeless, and this was their way out of it. I've met some expediters that, were divorced, that they were going through problems at home, and this was their way out. But then I've also met expediters like myself that had a family at a home, that had a wife, that had a kid. And, do your research. Find out from other people, how is it, especially find out from those that do have families, that's been out there for 3, 4, 5+ years. How do they handle it? How do they deal with being gone from their loved ones 3 to 4 weeks at a time? Because I tell you right now, folks, it is not easy. And the first time I dealt with it hard. My daughter was only 1 year old. My wife was just going to school for nursing. And it was hard for everybody. And the second time was no better. It was difficult in a different way. But it's never easy when you have a family back at home. So do your research. Know what the expediting field entails. Find out what it is you're going to be doing. Because, believe it or not, you're not going to be driving all the time. You're going to be doing a lot of sitting. And when you think you are absolutely tired of sitting, guess what's going to happen? You're going to sit some more. You're not always going to have a profitable run. You're not always going to get these long 600-700 mile runs. You're probably going to get 2, 3, 4 150-mile runs back to back to back to back. It happens. That's the lifestyle. You have to plan for those times because you never know when they're going to happen. You could have some weeks where you're running really good. You could have some really crappy weeks where you're not running so good. So it just all depends. Research the company your fleet owner is driving for. Notice how I didn't say the company that you will be driving for. Because remember, you do not drive for the company. You drive for the fleet owner. There's a difference. And I say that because I tell people, if you get that mentality in your mind right now, and remember that you don't drive for the company, you drive for the fleet owner, it'll make things easier too. Because in my eyes, if I drive for my fleet owner, the company could give a damn about how long I sit out there. They could care less that I haven't gotten a load in 3 or 4 days. The company could care less that, I'm frustrated. I don't work for them. So why should they care? All they care about is making sure that when I do get a load, that I accept it. Is it forced dispatch? Normally not. but you don't get no benefits from doing this kind of work. So remember that. For example, with Bolt Express, we deal with mostly automotive manufacturing. So with that in mind, which I'm going to go over it later, that wherever you are at, whatever area you stay in, has to be where the freight is for that particular area. You don't want to be in an area that's hot for scuba diving. You would do nothing there. So research the company your fleet owner is driving for. Join a Facebook or some type of online group, basically Facebook, and ask about the fleet owner you're going to be driving for. Because I guarantee you, I did that for my 2 owners. The 2 owners that I drove for, actually 3, I went on Facebook for all of them. Because I guarantee you, as large as some of these communities are, and I will leave a couple links in the description of the video after I'm done, between the numerous of Facebook groups, I guarantee you there is one person at least, and probably several, that has driven or know the fleet owner that you're going to be signing on with. Ask about them. I've asked about my previous 2 owners, and they were favorable. They had their little cracks in the surface, but it was something I could deal with. The last fleet owner I drove for was highly praised, and a whole lot of people knew who he was. So I felt comfortable with driving for him, because I knew that if he was a good person, then I would have a good time, or I shouldn't say have a good time, but my life on the road will be a lot more easier with the very good fleet owner. Because if you have a crappy fleet owner, guess what's going to happen when you're out on the road? Exactly. So, don't just jump straight into it without getting your feet wet first. Plain and simple. Do not randomly run across this whole expediting thing and then go out buy a $30,000, $40,000 van and then just join a company. Don't do that. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to go belly under, and then you're going to be trying to sell your van back within a few months. And guess what? You lost out on money because you will not get the full value that you paid for the truck. Do not jump straight in without getting your feet wet first. If you want to go that route, that's fine, but do it the right way. Drive for a fleet owner first. See how that goes. Give it a year. Because I guarantee you will learn a lot in a year of expediting. And you would have gathered enough information to where you could successfully remove yourself and go back in with your own authority in your own van. As compared to, I just ran across this opportunity online. I'm going to go ahead and grab my own van, try to make $1.20 a mile. You'd be surprised how often that does not happen. So again, don't just jump straight into it. Really, really can't explain this enough. Can't say it enough. Really go over your contract in full. There are certain things that you are entitled to depending on the splits that you get. Normally, there's either a 60-40 split. I've seen some do 63-65. Then there are some 40-60 splits. Those are normally your 2 splits, 60-40 or 40-60. If you are a person that's receiving a 60-40 split, that means that you are getting 60% of the line haul. Your owner gets the 40% and vice versa. If you are getting 60% of the line haul, that means that you are entitled to 100% of the fuel surcharge. I will leave in the description what that means. If you get 60% of the line haul, and I should say this, If you get 60% and you are paying for fuel, which more likely you are, you deserve 100% of the fuel surcharge. No way around that. No instances where you should not be getting it. Now, in my case, I can't fully say that 100% because I didn't receive all of my fuel surcharge with this last person, this last fleet owner. But that's because I had gotten so many bonuses, and I was actually receiving bonuses throughout the time I was with him, that kind of made up for that. But if you are driving for a fleet owner that doesn't offer all that, then 99.999% of the time you should always get 100% of the fuel surcharge. You know, look for things in that contract such as incidentals. You know, should you get a crack in the windshield, who was responsible for paying for it? You know, go over the entire vehicle thoroughly. Make sure there's no dings and dents and scratches or none of that. If there are, let him know. What if you get a dent in the van when there's a windstorm? Who's responsible for that? What if the inverter goes out in the van? Who's responsible for replacing it? You know, little things like that. Because if you don't go over that and that stuff starts to break on you, you don't want to be the one that's left out and possibly having to be the one that's responsible for it. So go over your contract in full. Get out and be assertive. Look and talk to everyone. When you are sitting at a truck stop, because when you are sitting, you're gonna be sitting a lot at a truck stop, whether if it's a Pilot, a Love's, whatever. Look at the amount of vans coming in and out of there. You know, you're gonna start to notice what vans are moving, what vans are coming in there, just filling up, going back out. You're gonna notice vans that are coming in, and then when you wake up for your nap, they're gone. You know, just notice the movement. When somebody parks up next to you, go up to them in a friendly, courteous, professional manner. Introduce yourself. Don't just walk up to them and straight out ask how much money you make. To me, that's rude. And I had to shut down drivers that did that. You know, properly introduce yourself. You know, let them know who you drive for. And then start gradually going into, you know, how's freight moving for y'all? You know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you'll start to hear the same talk. You know, from one company, somebody might say, "Oh, all we do is sit." You know, blah 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 blah. And you might have another company that says, "Oh man, you know, I can't get enough sleep." You know, but you'll start to know that as you start to ask different people. Keep a notebook handy. Now, this is something that I always did. I kept a notebook handy. Every load that I took, I wrote down all the information, where I picked it up from, where I'm dropping it off to, the pay that I made from it, the rate per mile, etc. I wrote down the whole thing, the amount it costed me in fuel. Do some record keeping. So every 3 weeks, I would come back home. I would take all that information that I wrote down and I will put it into a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that I'm talking about. All right. So this is an example of the spreadsheet that I am talking about. As you see here, this was the first week that I ever went out with Bolt Express. I kept track of everything from the deadhead miles to the loaded miles to the fuel advances to the line haul pay, my pay, the amount I was going to save for taxes, the amount I was just going to save just because. I even kept little side notes, you know, when I sat somewhere too long, you know, little different things that happened while I was in the process of delivering a load or while I was sitting. Different little notes down here. And as you start to do this, you start to get an idea. of exactly where to sit and where not to sit. Like for down here, this was my last 3 weeks before I went home. As you can see here, I had 7, 9, 10, 11 loads. 7 of them were either in Kentucky or in Indiana. When I dropped off, out of the 11 loads, 7 of them were either in Kentucky or in South Carolina. So once you start getting this spreadsheet going, you will have a general idea of exactly where it is, where the freight is hot for you. You know, because what might work for you may not work for the next person. Do your research into places with the most jobs freight that is directly related to the company your fleet owner is driving for. Now, I want to go here. This was a website that I went to that pretty much tells you the top 10 states for manufacturing jobs. Now, generally, I should say, if a state has a lot of manufacturing jobs, generally, that would mean that a lot of manufacturing, that a lot of products is being produced for us to haul. Okay. Here's a list. I'm just gonna, skim through it real quick. You got California coming in at number 1. You got okay, this is not trying to act right with me. But anyway, we're gonna just bypass this altogether. That list pretty much came up with these states. Okay, all the states that are in red are your bottom 5 states. Or I'm sorry, all the ones that blue are the bottom 5. It had a list of 10 states. And number 6 through 10 is pretty much what you see in blue. And then number 1 through 5 is pretty much the ones you see in red. Now, you look at places like California and Texas, and you're like, well, this can't be right, because whenever I go to Laredo or El Paso, I'm always sitting a lot. I could get a good load coming down here. I could get a good load coming down here, but then I'm always sitting down here too long. That pretty much it averages out the time that I'm out. Okay, these are going to be your little border towns. Places where shipment is going to come from down here in Mexico. They're going to ship up to Laredo. Usually, the beginning of the week. And then it's going to take you to all these different places. You're going to have stuff coming up to El Paso. That may take you to places over here. It might go this way too, but it's going to take you to some places over here. Might be where California comes into play. Now, I'm not saying go to California and sit. Because you will get there. Maybe. But you will not get out of California. You can get to Laredo. You can get to El Paso. But you may not get out of there. So, I don't even know why I have these 2 in red. Other than California is the number 1 place with the most manufactured jobs. But then again, the population would make California number 1 anyway. Texas, the advantage is that it has border towns. If you're working for the right company, you could probably get loads out of here quicker than some other people. But you got a lot of cheap freight down here. A lot of cheap freight. People that are willing to take freight out of Texas for 25, 20 cents. And then you got these other red states that are your hot states for freight. Now, for me, pretty much anything that was Buffalo, New York, this way, tend to be a good area. For Buffalo, New York, this way, tended to be good. It's how I went to Buffalo, and I went like this. I didn't go like this. I went like that. That tended to be a good area for me. That led me down around Pittsburgh area. The whole state of Ohio is generally good. Michigan is usually good. Detroit and south. Detroit and south is usually typically a good area. All of Indiana is typically good. Though once I start finding myself getting closer to the Kentucky border, I start to experience problems because lows will sometimes would carry me into these states, which for me were not good states. Any of this, I would get a load there, but then I end up sitting 2, 3, 4 days. I didn't like it. Same thing with down here. Illinois to me was okay, but the problem with Illinois is you get dragged out here to Iowa. A lot of John Deere loads out here. You tend to get stuck out here doing nothing but John Deere loads. They pay well, but they're very short runs. Personally, I don't like being in Iowa. I'm usually a fan of getting short loads because they all add up. But I'm not a fan of having a deadhead all the way back this way. I'm not a fan of that. So, the Carolinas, you can always get a load to these places, but it's harder to get out than it, or it's harder to get out than it is to come in. You can almost always get a load down here, but it's harder to get one back out. But these tend to be your good states. And when you do your research and you start to get your map, you will start to see places where you can safely say, okay, I want to sit right here. You know, I don't want to move from out of these areas right here. All right, so plan for the slow months. Think of expediting like retail. With retail, to me, I think directly relates to how freight runs. January and February and parts of March will always be your slowest months of the year. And then it kind of picks up after March until about April or May. And then it really starts picking up from May until the holidays hit. And then once the holidays hit, there's going to be a good 3 or 4 months there where things will slow down to the point where you're going to have to maybe sometimes dip into your savings. You have to pull something out here, pull something out there. Because it's not going to be busy for all 12 months. You know, freight does slow down. Just like in retail slows down. You know, a retail business, a grocery store business is not going to be busy 12 months out of the year. There's going to be that chunk of period here, a chunk of time here, where where retail business, where sales is going to be slow. The sales are going to be low. Because it's just not busy around that time of year. You know, usually in the colder months, freight tends to slow down a bit. You know, when it's warmer months, freight tends to pick up a little bit. But January, February, and March, I found to be very slow for freight, and then again towards the end of the year. So you get like a good base, like right around the middle of the year, maybe, where you could get decent opportunities, but it's like the before and after, things do tend to slow down a bit. So do plan for that. You know, what I usually do is I usually put up 20% of whatever I got paid. You know, so if I got gross $500, I made sure to put at least 100 of it in the bank. You know, and I did that about every week. So when you come out at the end of the month, and let's say you got $300-400 saved, and you get to that 1 week where freight is really slow, you know, then you say, okay, I got $300-400 saved up. I'm gonna dip into it, use it accordingly. Now, if you are an owner operator, you know, then you got to save for obviously more things like, you know, maintenance costs or, you know, what have you. But plan for the slow months. And again, give it your all. Your all may depend on it. If you do these steps, it should make you a more successful expediter. Because as I said, this is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And what you put into it will depend on what you get out of it. If you put your all into it, but you have a limitless possibility of being successful. This is the Great Simulator here. Again, if you have any questions, leave a comment on this video. I'm going to leave the links for a couple Facebook groups, as well as some other little information in the description box of this video. Until next time, folks, take care.